"I am going to kill you," proclaimed the murderer. A tinge of uncontrollable mad excitement could be heard in his voice. "That's evil," cried the about-to-be victim, as they hurriedly backed themselves into the corner of the shadow-soaked room. The crazed knife-wielding killer edged ever closer. "What makes it evil, and why should I care?" the killer shot back, enjoying a chance to toy with his victim. No sooner than the momentous question had made itself known, a pool of thick, warm blood had begun to accumulate in the corner of the room. A question was answered, not by words. The question was answered by the act. But was the answer right? Highlighted here is perhaps the scariest of ideas. An idea of sickening philosophical importance. An idea that will shake the falsely perceived as objective and inarguable views of many to the very core. An idea that makes civil society shudder as nothing else does. Two separate questions that have applied constant pressure to both the human society and the human mind for many thousands of years, and which, should we continue to survive, will continue to apply that pressure for many millions more. Two of the biggest, greatest questions, not simply of our age, but of all ages. Firstly, what makes something right or wrong, good or evil, moral or immoral? And secondly, why should anyone care? The first question is difficult enough. By the time one gets to the second, they can look forward to the flimsy structure of reasoning they have constructed being doused in kerosene and set ablaze. The first question makes you build something. The second one will help you demolish it. A great many will lack the introspection, rationality, and critical thinking skills to seriously consider either question. These people will live their whole lives as followers of incoherent, irrational, and worthless moral systems. Systems that make a mockery of the very idea of distinguishing between right and wrong. And a great many people do just that. The average person is incapable of defending the moral standards that guide them through life every single day. And of course they can't defend them. They can't even question them. Good luck engaging in the rationality necessary to defend an idea when you have never even questioned it. Try to make the average person tell you why something they regard as evil is so, and they will be reduced to a very shocked, babbling wreck. Try to make the average person tell you why you should care about their moral claims, and they will recoil in abject horror. What they should do is stand more firmly than ever before, and with great courage and confidence issue a coherent, concise, and rational answer to both questions. If someone encounters a person who wants to debate such things, they will similarly recoil in abject horror. They should once again stand more firmly than ever before, and with all of the courage and confidence in the world, unleash rational argument after rational argument until their opponent has been either entirely crushed or entirely convinced. We should not fear those who question such things. We should not fear introspection. We should not regard questioning our moral norms as taboo. We should embrace it, knowing that we can defend them and that it is our rational duty to do just that. But most people are incapable of such things. Most people are irrational and confused. Desperate to defend their morality, they establish a social convention against ever questioning it. Questioning moral norms becomes a taboo. Moral knowledge becomes dogma. And morality dies. The world these people usher in is one of amorality. In seeking to uphold their morality, in seeking to keep it safe from criticism, they ensure that it grows irrational, dogmatic, and baseless. They ensure that moral discourse occurs between a number of disgustingly stupid, spectacularly irrational, and absolutely dogmatic moral systems. When we cannot question moral belief is made baseless. The moment moral belief becomes baseless, anything goes, and amorality is unleashed upon the world. The ideas of good and evil are aggressively sapped of all meaning. When we remove rationality as a foundation for morality, as we necessarily do when we sieve at the fort of questions and introspection, we are depriving it of its logic and making it dogmatic. As soon as we embrace dogma, anything goes. When morality does not need a rational foundation, anyone gets to believe anything, with all beliefs made equally baseless and equally respectable. Rationality is the judge that decides what claims are valid and what claims are not. Those who embrace dogma have killed the judge, and in doing so, made everything permissible. In seeking to defend their morality from criticism, they have killed it. They made it equal to all the evil they condemned when they deprived it of rationality with the embrace of dogma. In seeking to defend our moral systems by shunning the very idea of approaching them critically, we seal the fate of those moral systems by setting the stage for every dogmatic evil the human mind can conceive of. Dogma can underlie any evil. Rationality cannot. If ideas do not need rational justification, then any idea is acceptable, and if any idea is acceptable, then so is any action. Amorality is born, and the differentiation between right and wrong becomes an increasingly meaningless and incoherent word game. Anything goes. Nothing is good or evil, right or wrong, moral or immoral. These words become meaningless sounds for idiots to throw around. Those who use such terms become just a bunch of dogmatic idiots yelling with not one iota of coherence, with none having any claim to superiority over any of the others. This did not have to be the case, but when they embraced dogma in a desperate attempt to defend their morality from criticism, they killed any rational claim they had to moral superiority. Morality is like a plant. You prune it with regular introspection and critical consideration. This allows you to cut away the bad bits and keep it healthy. Some people exhibit a tendency to forget about this. They forget to even water it out of fear that they might kill it. And in doing so, they seal its fate. A morality that is not surrounded by introspection, critical thinking, and rationality will become a rotten, dogmatic infection. When morality is allowed to become a matter of dogma, anything goes, because dogma knows no limits. Amorality is born, because suddenly anything can be a moral claim. It doesn't have to sit upon a foundation of reason and rationality. Any claim can go. Any immorality can be baseless. Any immorality can be dogmatic. When our morality becomes dogmatic, it becomes equal to every immorality. Reason is the great judge that crushes bad claims and defends good ones. When we embrace dogma, we embrace unquestioning belief. Reason dies and anything goes. Make morality dogmatic, and you will kill it. Dogma knows of no difference between good and evil. Continue to label things good and evil we may, but good and evil will be reduced to meaningless sounds. Not words with a rational basis, the grunts of dogmatic, irrational animals. Do not make morality dogmatic. Do not murder morality. Do not let sickening amorality consume this world. Consider for one moment what I am talking about. A world with no good or evil. Take just a moment to think about what that means. There is no right or wrong. just irrational morons throwing around words. They throw them around at the whims of their emotions and intuitions. Or they throw them around not caring for their accuracy, only their ability to serve their ends. You can call things good and evil, but expressing such moral claims, calling murder, torture, slavery, or the Holocaust evil, becomes no different to talking about a flavour of cake that you dislike. Just a meaningless, baseless preference with not a hint of rationality. Just a game of baseless preferences. Your moral claims are equally baseless and dogmatic to those of your deranged opponent, furiously spouting the exact opposite belief. And the tight chains of dogma ensure that you will never engage in the reasoning necessary to claim moral superiority. Those who fight for the liberty of the enslaved cannot lay claim to moral superiority over those who keep 100 slaves in shackles. That is the amoral world. They could claim to be right, and there is no doubt that both sides will. But their embrace of dogma and lack of rationality ensures that both are made equal in their baselessness. Both are made equal in their irrationality. Where the potential for a claim to rational superiority existed, it has been killed. Killed by fear. Killed by dogma. The moral embraced dogma out of fear of criticism that they could have weathered with ease. When they should have stood confidently and courageously against those who questioned their convictions, they erected a wall of dogmatism which eventually rotted those convictions to the core, turning rational knowledge into irrational and baseless preference, and creating the amoral world. A world where all ideas are equally baseless, and the claim to moral superiority can never be made. A world where everything becomes a game of strong versus weak. Anything goes, so long as the strong desire it. All that is needed is strength and desire, and barbarism consumes the earth. Some may chuckle at this idea. Some may think this sounds far off. Some are delusional. In some respects, we already live in the amoral world. Us humans are strong, animals are weak. We don't care for their moral value, at least not on 9 days out of 10. And because we are strong and they are weak, we get to brutalize them on an industrial level, because if the results make us feel good, why shouldn't we? We aren't that different from a murderer who kills his victim, because he is strong and they are weak, and he knew he would enjoy killing them, so that is exactly what he did. That is the relationship of the serial killer with his victim. That is the relationship of the human race with animal kind. We can brutalize them, and we seem to benefit from doing so that is exactly what we do. Some of us morally consider it, some of us rationally consider it, but as a rule, the industrial brutalization is allowed to occur. We don't just do it to animals either, we do it to our fellow humans all the time. The history of humanity is the history of the strong oppressing, exploiting, and brutalizing the weak every time they think doing so is a good idea. The weak protest. They label this as evil, but the strong don't care. And can you offer any reason why they should care? Why should he whose joy is built on suffering consider said suffering as an enemy? Do explain if you can. Why should anyone care about being moral? Why should people be moral when being moral isn't in their interest? Why should someone make their self-interest secondary to adherence to some baseless standard of good and evil that does nothing but impede the realization of their interest? Can it be irrational to be moral? Does moral behavior require irrationality? Why should people be moral when being moral is irrational? Without rational morality, nothing is good or evil. It is just what people do. They do it because they want to. They do it because they can. The amoral world is not far away. Perhaps it is already here. Perhaps it has always been here. Move morality beyond rationality. Move morality into a territory of baseless dogmatic preferences, and the amoral world will consume all without a moment of hesitation for you to consider your mistake. The amoral world is not a fantasy. It is a piece of our world, and it can grow and it can die. Perhaps take a moment to enjoy pondering the pleasant thought that I just deposited. Without morality, there is only self-interest, strong and weak. Or perhaps even with morality, there are only those things. I will leave you to think about it. Do we already live in the amoral world? I think there is a strong argument to be made that we do. But do we have to? Should we seek to escape its evil by rising to power within it, or seeking to progress beyond it? And is the amoral world a child of rationality or irrationality? Is the amoral world a natural result of rational self-interest, or is it a result of irrational human desire let loose upon the world? Is amorality the embodiment of self-interest rational and real, or self-interest irrational and perceived? These are very complex questions which we should be taking time to ponder. They are some of the most important questions of all time. If I was you, I would have a long hard think about the self-interest part. Perhaps that is of some significance when I talk about morality and rationality. Perhaps evil is irrational, and good rational. Perhaps there is a rational system for distinguishing between good and evil. Perhaps there is a rational reason that people should be good and shouldn't be evil. Perhaps morality has a strong basis in rationality and rational self-interest. Perhaps there is irrational morality. Or perhaps not. You can think, you can reason. Consider it for a moment.